So, trying something here. Was channeling about this Mercury retrograde that's coming forth because I have been already feeling so much of that quote unquote pre-shadow energy where I've run into a lot of people I've gone to middle school and high school with. And even if they didn't notice, I noticed and I saw them and I recognized them from that time period in my life. And Mercury rules community, it rules neighborhoods, Mercury rules early childhood education, so those early years of like elementary school, middle school, high school, things like that. And, I gave my neighbor a ride this week. This was my first time like really communicating and interacting with her on that way or in that realm, with this whole mercurial energy going on. Mercury rules neighbors and neighborhoods. It rules community. Everybody I've ran into has been somebody who's in like this community or who lives close by. They're at the like grocery stores that I usually go to, or they're close by to places where I probably work at or whatever. And so it's just very interesting to see how this energy is coming in really strong. The Mercury retrograde will be in Taurus. And Taurus gives this sort of slow energy. But what I was really channeling was that this is not a Mercury retrograde that we feel like we can avoid. And none of them are. But to really understand what goes on here, both the higher and lower octaves of Mercury, which would be Virgo and Gemini. Virgo essentially being the higher and Gemini being the lower. However, both signs, to me, I feel like they're still pretty conscious signs. There's 12 signs. And so Gemini would be the third one. Virgo would be the sixth sign. And they're still on that upper half of the wheel with the whole 12 signs. They're still pretty conscious. Virgo is a material sign, so it has to do with this realm, right? And so with the energy of Mercury, you don't really get the subconscious, the metaphysical, the esoteric aspects like that. Even though Gemini, is a teacher of these things, Virgo can be the shaman, it's still on a very conscious and intellectual, logical level because thus is the nature of Mercury, right? And like I said, it's not denying that these people can't be deep or really probe the subconscious, but we're just talking about the basic layout of the signs and how they're given to us and how I'm interpreting them. And so what I feel like happens with a Mercury retrograde is we start to experience more of those subconscious happenings with Mercury, where this may be a time where people who are psychic and intuitive are really amped up and revved up in that way. Like, your clairaudience, your thoughts, your clairvoyance, everything can be turning on a deeper level. And I feel as though it's very important for us to start to understand our dominant thinking patterns and what's going on in our subconscious mind. Because when we talk about this energy of a Mercury retrograde, what's happening is all these things that have been in your subconscious, just sitting there, meddling there, are forcefully brought to the forefront. All those one-off thoughts that maybe you spent a couple hours just giving so much energy to, or maybe it was just a few minutes of like jam-packed emotion where you were feeding into a thought, and it starts to manifest in some way, shape, or form. And Mercury retrograde is now forcing you to deal with that thought that you created and just close it out. And it can be on a very grandeur scale, depending on the thoughts that you put out there and the thoughts that you receive. Or it could be something that's very, minor, where, you're closing it out with you just running into a person and like, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, or it could be something where, like, Mercury retrograde likes to bring relationships back, friendships, platonic or romantic, or whatever type of relationship, business, it likes to bring those energies back around for you to close out and finish for all, or perhaps loop back into another karmic cycle. I had an ex where and he just texted me too not too long ago, but where we, every time we were together, we were in a Mercury retrograde. I just didn't know it. I was still following astrology. I just wasn't really understanding the energy that well though. But I caught it by the time I broke that loop. But every single time we were together, every time we got back together, is always during a Mercury retrograde. So people who are born with a lot of retrogrades, like retrograde planets in their chart, they're typically dealing with a lot of karmic or heavy past life stuff. And that's true for people who are stelliums. And, even if you just have one planet that's retrograde in your chart, that energy is typically something that is heavy karmic or past life energy. And all that means is it's a heavy cycle. It's a heavy pattern that you've been playing out over and over and over and over and over again. Could be in this life, could be in 100 lives, or could just be in 2 lives where you just were hell-bent on this pattern, and it was very important for you to break it. So everything that's happening, the people that you run into, the old thoughts that are resurfacing when Mercury retrograde comes through, is bringing the subconscious aspects of Mercury to light. Is forcing you to deal with yourself. Is forcing you to deal with the subconscious thoughts that you created and just linger. You have to close out those thought forms. You have to take control of your mind. You have to let it all go. Release it. Release it. Release it. Release it. Release it. It's time for us to just really take accountability for what we've had on our minds the past few years or the past few months or whatever. Change your dominant thinking pattern. Change your dominant thinking pattern. Change how your mind is working, operating, what your mind is focused on. That's what you want to be focused toward. All right, I got back to rambling. But yes, all in all, Mercury retrograde is forcing you to deal with yourself. It's time to do some shadow work for the next 3 weeks. Don't run from you, This is going to make you stronger and make your mind stronger, make you more psychic. You're into that. Whatever. All right.